Hey there, all you plant geeks. Let's talk about the Marble Queen Pothos. As some of you, I'm sure, are aware, pothos is a very popular houseplant. More often than not, you're going to see golden pothos, which I have another video on, which will be in the link below. However, this is a different type of pothos that is variegated and stunning and beautiful. So you're going to care for this guy just like you would a regular pothos. Only water the soil whenever it's dry. They're relatively hardy plants. They are, well, unlike the pothos, because of the variegation on these guys, I wouldn't really recommend to keep these guys in low light condition. These are going to definitely prefer bright and direct to even a little bit of bright direct light. They are pretty thin foliage, so you don't want to expose them to too much bright direct light. But one of the challenges or one of the things that you actually have to kind of pick up on with these Marble Queen Pothos is that they have a tendency to revert back to just without variegation. And these are, it's like a jade pothos, if you've ever heard of those. That would just be like a Marble Queen Pothos that has lost its variegation as far as I'm aware. So what you can actually do here, so if you notice here, I have, let's turn this guy around. I have this vine here that is just jade green, you know, no variegation at all. And you can tell by looking at the stem that this guy's just green. Versus if we look at the stem of this guy here, it's actually white. So the stem is going to be a dead giveaway in terms of variegated plants, and how you can tell, you know, if you have just a jade stem or like a variegated stem. So with variegated plants, it's important to note that the reason why these guys are white, the foliage is white on this, is because it's actually lacking chlorophyll. And chlorophyll is an organelle that I think it's an organelle, I don't know. It's been a minute since biology, y'all. So it's something in the plant that takes sunlight and turns it into energy, to put it simply. And that is why whenever you have a variegated plant, especially one with a lot of white variegation on it, sometimes the white leaves don't last very long. If you've ever seen a plant with all white leaves, don't get it, because it's not going to last. And it's important for you to prune and maintain your variegated plants often, so that way you can be aware of the balance in your plant. So if this guy didn't have nearly as much variegation, it could probably do with less sunlight, because there's much more chlorophyll to take in everything. But you know, with a plant that is really this white, that doesn't have that much of those jade green stems, it's going to need a lot more light to sustain its life, because there's not as much chlorophyll to take in all that sunlight energy, you know, and help the plant survive. So that's definitely something you should know about these plants, all variegated plants really. So ideally you want to kind of have a balance between those jade areas and those white areas. Another issue with these plants, you can kind of see, like this vine, for example, this white variegation on these leaves is not nearly as brilliant or as clear as, you know, right here. This leaf, you know, is like stark white, whereas the variegation on this leaf here is like almost like a mint green color. That is definitely a challenge with owning these plants, is maintaining the variegation on it, like I said, and keeping them very white and brilliant. Sunlight has a lot to do with that. You want to make sure you're giving this plant a lot of energy. And pruning, you know, you gotta maintain these guys and prune them properly. But yeah, you want to maintain these guys and keep up on the foliage to make sure that you are, you know, giving the plant the right conditions to live. So furthermore, I have never had any pests with this plant. I have had some spider mites on my pothos before, but they're not really an issue. You can just wipe them off, spraying with some neem oil, and I'll make a video on pests and how to manage them here soon. But if you wanted to propagate this guy, be very easy, just like any plant that you can trim along a node. So if you see the underside of this stem here, actually has everywhere where a leaf comes out, there's this little tiny black nub, which is actually a root that would, if it was in soil, start to expand like a normal root system. But because this guy's just open to air, it's not going to put the energy into maintaining those roots. So if you wanted to propagate this guy, you can water propagate it. That's very easy, in which case I would just trim down one of the vines and then go ahead and just trim this in different areas right below the node where that root is coming out. Stick it in some water, give it a couple weeks, change the water every few days to keep it clean and oxygenated, and then you'll have roots form, and then you can put it in soil. Super easy to propagate, very easy to care for, and these guys will just vine and vine and vine and vine. So if you want to prune these guys, very easy, just cut below a leaf, and that will actually promote growth at the top of the plant and help new growth push out up here, which, you know, it's basically telling the plant stop growing there, and then it will focus its energy elsewhere. So, you know, if you don't want super long vines and you want to keep a bushier plant, you could definitely do that. Considering that this guy's already pretty bushy, I'm going to let it start to trail some more because I really don't have anywhere to put all of this foliage. Another thing you could do if you had some soil, you could just stick these guys directly in soil. I've never personally tried that, but I know you could do that. You could just cut this vine off and then lay like some of the cutting down. You could circle it up, lay this cutting down on top of some soil, keep it relatively moist, and then these roots will actually pick up chemical signals that tell them to start growing, and they'll grow right down into the soil. And you will have some propagated pothos, which is really cool. As for watering these guys, pretty easy to tell whenever they need a drink. You'll start to see the foliage shrivel up a little bit. This guy could probably use a drink here soon, but I would definitely recommend sticking your finger in the soil or even getting a soil probe. That way you can stick your probe down in there and actually see how dry that soil is. All right, everyone, let me know if you have any questions about how to care for the Marble Queen Pothos. Pretty interesting plant, stunning, really. It's super easy to care for, very forgiving, rewarding to grow, and I would definitely recommend it to anyone that is interested in variegated plants. It's definitely one of the more accessible variegated plants. Sometimes variegated plants can get really pricey, and this is actually one that is not too hard to get your hands a hold of. So I would definitely recommend. Bye, everyone.